That was dope.
That was dope. And that was completely off the cuff, man. That was like, that's DK and Mike Leon hanging out. That's how it is. So that's what y'all are in for today. Daniel DK here for another Defender of the Riff, coming live to you from the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Do I have that correct? We are in the Atlantic Ocean.
We are currently floating through a massive body of water.
It is a 5-star hotel on water, basically, with a bunch of heavy metal bands on it. We are on the Headbangers Boat, Lamb of God presents. I'm hanging with my dude Mike Leon, who I've now watched crush 2 sets at the Stardust Theater, the main stage here on the boat. It's a real sexy ass theater. Shredding, slapping, and machine gunning with Soulfly. Tell me about it. I mean, the first thing to talk about with being on a boat is to acknowledge the waves and that you feel every bit of that while you're on stage. Tell me about that experience. The first one was rough, but it seemed like this one may have been a little rougher. Tell me what was up.
I felt like this one was a little bit chiller.
Okay.
I just got off stage, like as of maybe 30 minutes ago, finished playing. So this time I feel like maybe I was used to it a little bit more, but I could definitely feel it like when I was doing big circle whips and big bangs, I was like trying to like not fall over. I'm surprised I didn't, but on the first one, immediately with the first jump that we did when we do Back to the Primitive, came out on stage, rocking, ready to go, jumped, rolled my ankle. First 1 minute of the set. So, yeah.
Well, it didn't show because you spent the next 59 minutes literally rocking and jumping like a maniac. So, and I've also been putting in about 3,000 steps a day with you every single day.
At least, dude.
Yeah, at least. Yeah. Well, I think
we're in like 5-digit territory.
Wow. Daily. Yeah, it's been a lot of walking, a lot of stairs. But yeah, man, we're here. We're on the boat. Thank you for joining a Defender in a very cool setting.
Yeah, very sick.
You know, I always love jamming with you. I always love hanging with you. This is the first time we've sat down with your brand new LTD signature bass in your hands while we're jamming. It's wicked to not only see you play it, but to play it and hang with you. And yeah, dude, I saw the one at NAMM, but it's way cooler to see it in your hands.
Yeah, what's really sick about these is that with the sandblasted finish, every single bass looks different, so it's got its own identity, which I think is cool for anybody who wants to have one or use one, that it all looks different. Like every single one has its own fingerprint basically, and the 2 that I have with me now, one of them was actually the prototype of the production model, and this one is like the production that is going out into stores and online. So this is the actual one that you can get right now at esp.com, and yeah, it's a dream come true to have this right here. I've been a fan of the B series ever since, I think it was 2017, our homie, Tony Rouser. Shout out to the boy.
Best guitars in the world.
That's right. He got me onto the B series because when I joined Soulfly, I was coming from the Havoc world, as you know, which plays 4-string instruments and E standard and E flat standard tunings. So that was a big like shock to me going from those tunings to like B standard and A for Max and his music. So at first I was using a lot of the F series, which has like a 5-string. I think it was called the F1005, if I'm not mistaken, or 415. But I liked it. It looked cool. It's kind of like the F body style, kind of reminiscent of the Tom Araya signature, but without the cut down here by the bridge.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it looked cool. It had like a really nice feel to it, very smooth, but it was lacking something from my Havoc tone that I was familiar with to, it didn't translate well into Soulfly. So I used it for a few years, and then finally in 2017, Tony suggested that I try one of these B series, and it was a B1004 special edition that he gave me. And right off the bat, I knew like immediately that this was the bass that I needed, because it had, for one thing, I was going from active EMG pickups to these Nordstrand big splits, which come standard on all B series, but I decided to put them into my signature eventually. That was a big change, and I feel like just It was a lot of changes, you know, a bolt-on neck with 6-bolt pattern, a 5-piece Wenge Purple Heart neck, and with all of those variables in one instrument, it became my new love. And I played that for probably 3 or 4 years, constantly. And I took a lot of specs on that when they finally asked me, or when I was able to make a custom instrument. I basically was like, this is what I love. It became my favorite instrument, and I just asked to do some customizations. I took a little bit of the EQ that was happening out of it, simplified it, only using stuff that I would use on stage, and I asked if we could do like a sandblasted black finish, which had not been done. It's so sick, and it looks so cool in like different lighting.
And as you say, each one has its own very unique fingerprint.
Yeah.
Each one is its own piece of art. It's a one of one, really.
Exactly.
It's as close. It's the most economical way for someone to get their hands on a custom piece from ESP. Each one is a little bit custom, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Super
Every
cool.
single one of them has like the same arrangement, but each has its own like identity, which I think is super cool.
Super fucking cool.
Yeah.
So obviously, when you're talking about the years you put into, you know, playing F series and B series and all the, you know, what you just summed up in a couple minutes, it's very easy to deduce you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about it the other day. What do you say, 17 years?
It's been 17 years since I started touring, and I believe it's been 16 years since I first got on board with ESP.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's
so
sick.
When you first got on board with ESP, were you playing in the Absence? Is that what was that was the first band where you got linked up with ESP guitars?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I generally when I sit down with a guest, I don't know their entire life story, but I know a pretty good chunk about your life story. But I'd like to hit on some like pretty interesting points. I'd love to hear a little bit about you know, some of the early days playing melodeth with the Absence, and kind of, you know, that band was putting out kick-ass music when you were in that band.
Yeah. Thank you.
You know, there was a lot of cool touring opportunities, and there was a lot, you know, you made a lot of friends in that era. I'd love for you to just share some thoughts and feelings from that era, some good memories, and tell me about the early days. Tell me about Baby Mike, man.
Dude, Baby Mike, it's funny that you say that, because back in the first ever metal cruise was the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise that actually played on a stage very similar to this area right here. And that was probably like something like 14 years ago. You know, it was, I think 2010, if I'm not mistaken, was the first cruise. And I started playing with the Absence in 2007. I just turned 20 years old, I think, and joined the guys. The first tour that I ever did was the Metal Blade 25th anniversary tour. It was the Absence, Goat Whore, the Red Chord, Black Dahlia Murder, and Cannibal Corpse. Dude.
Stacked.
It was stacked, and that was like sick. I cut my teeth on that that tour, and
it's crazy. That tour could literally be 2004 or 2024. That's what's sick.
Yeah.
Imagine that tour today.
Right.
Insane.
That'd be crazy for the Red Chord to come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it started. I started out with those guys back in the day. I was a young kid back then, really didn't know what I was doing. I was thankful to have played with those dudes, because those guitar players, as I'm sure you know, are absolute monster players, songwriters as well. So that kind of, it set the bar for me as a player a lot higher than what I was doing without the band, obviously. It really pushed what I thought I was capable of. Like I always say, like the Absence taught me how to go fast. They taught me how to play fast. They taught me how to cut the sleeves off my t-shirt, which is quite important, as you've known.
Essential.
Yeah, essential. So like I learned a lot from those dudes. I was in that band for the better part of, I think, probably at this point, 14, 15 years maybe. On and off, there was a lot of hiatus happening. And but I did a lot of great tours with them. I got to meet the guys in Amon Amarth. We did a tour together in 2008 and 9. A bunch of dates with those guys. I made a ton of friends, dude. It was the best way I guess I could have started my career as a young musician. But we had like a lot of issues internally that kept us from touring as much as we needed to. It's you know, as you know, you need a tour a lot to be able to break through. And get better opportunities, and some of the guys just weren't really capable of doing that. So Yeah, I did. I did a lot of work with those guys, and we took a long hiatus. We did a big comeback in 2016 when we did an album called A Gift for the Obsessed, which some of my favorite bass work that I've ever had, like on a record. We kind of came out of the gates swinging with that one. We had a lot of pent up energy from the hiatus, about 8 years. And we did that album, and then in
That
2000,
record rules.
that record's got
Give me a
some
riff from that
bangers.
record. You say some of your favorite bass shit. Give me a lick from that.
Let me
you love.
see. Okay, so there's a riff on a song called Celestial Hysteria, and I think it might be the first time there's ever been slap bass in an Absence album. So it's like it's aggressive. It's a lot going on. I think that actually is supposed to be in standard B, but it like I said, it was the first time they ever let me slap in a melodeth record, which probably doesn't ever happen. So that's
Don't
cool.
hear that on fucking any At the Gates records.
Right.
Yeah.
Be cool if they did.
No,
though.
it'd be super cool if
I'm
they
about
did.
it. I'm about that.
Yo, you're a slap master.
I got strong thumbs, baby.
You do.
But yeah, that was a really cool moment in that era. We did an album called Coffinize that we recorded and released during COVID, which was actually the year that you and I met as well. And another one of my favorite albums. Those two albums have a lot of songs that are very dear to me as far as like the riffs go, and showcasing like what I wanted to do as with my playing style in a melodic death metal band.
I think a really cool thing that's worth to note about Coffinized as well is that it's not just you that has a unique attachment to it because of how the record came to be in the era that it came out in, but I think that you have to recognize that because during the pandemic you were doing Twitch streaming and building an online presence like you'd never had before, in an online community that was no one knew that we would need that, but we needed that. Everyone who was part of your riff vortex during that time feels very attached to that record because they feel like they were a part of it, and they were. From having this, sound bites from the album as part of your Twitch audio scheme. I'd like to use proper lingo, but anyone who's watching this who's never been on Twitch before is probably like, what the fuck is he talking about? All your alerts were clips from the songs, and there was a lot of promo going on via the Twitch channel and pre-orders and just general support and love and wanting to elevate you and elevate our whole community. So a lot of homies feel very attached to that record, and I'm one of them. That record fucking rules, man.
Thank you, bro. It's cool that you mentioned that, dude, because that was a really cool campaign, like a way to campaign during a really strange time for us. And we premiered some music videos on the channel. We had like little emotes, that were like Absence related, that were kind of tied into the album artwork and stuff. And that was a really cool, really productive, very fun project. And that was actually, I'm happy to have gone out with that being like the final gem in the crown for me when it came like to the Absence time in general. But I'm super proud of that, and it's a ripping album, dude. It is. It is. And to stick with the Mike Leon story, you might hear that whole era that you just talked about and be like, man, that was you cutting your teeth. That could have been it. You could have had your next gig could have been your next big gig, but the teeth cutting was not done yet. You had no idea the journey you were in store for when you joined one of the hardest working bands at that time in the thrash metal scene. You joined Colorado's Havoc. While Absence was still, we kind of jumped around in Absence era. These things did go on simultaneously for a point. It's true. But yeah, you did a lot of teeth cutting with Absence back home in Florida. You did a lot of teeth cutting with Havoc. It wasn't just, it wasn't all rainbows and pots of gold on the way to your journey of getting your big rock star gig. It was certainly not a lot of work. How many shows do you think that Havoc was road dogging in that era? I feel like you played I can't even count. hella triple digits, like 600, 700, 800 shows with that band. It feels like you guys were literally the support to every big death metal or thrash metal tour that was going on in that era. It was crazy, and headline tours as well on top of that as well. A lot of international touring as well. Exactly, yeah. I joined them, as I was mentioning, the hiatus from the Absence, to segue a little bit more smoothly. during that hiatus in like 2010, 12 era, I had befriended the guys in Havoc. And I actually, not a lot of people know this is a pretty cool little fun fact. I actually ran front of house for Havoc before I joined the band.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
I don't really talk about it that often, but that's how I got in with them, because I loved the guys, I loved the band so much, I loved the guys so much that I wanted to make myself available in any way. And at one point Dave was like, dude, do you want to learn how to mix front of house? And I was like, I would love to go on tour with you guys, because they were doing a bunch of killer tours with bands that I loved. So he flew me out to Denver, taught me how to mix front of house, taught me how to mix his band, how he wanted it to sound. And we hit the road. I think we did, this is a cool one that I know you're gonna dig. One of the most insane tours that I ever did in my life was Havoc and Skeleton Witch. We did 63 shows in 65 days. That's 2 days off.
Fucking love that band.
I know you love that.
I love Skelly Witch.
You might be one of the few people that has a Skeleton Witch t-shirt collection that rivals my own.
I think I have one for every day of the week.
Yeah.
And that's before we even get into other merch accessories. It's like, you want a Skeleton Witch pint? If you come over to my place for a pint of beer, it's coming in a Skelly Witch glass. You go take a shower, we got a Skelly Witch shower curtain.
Oh my God,
we got Skelly Witch housewares. We got it all. Yeah.
They like their accessories, but I loved that tour was really sick, and I mixed them that whole time. So that's how I kind of got to know them. We did that big tour. We did another cruise, actually, the Barge to Hell cruise, which was a really like a one-time only
70K
thing.
run.
It was 70K, but it was more death thrash metal oriented.
1 year, right?
One time, yeah. And it was fun. It was really cool. I have really fond memories of that time. But then it was shortly after that, the bass player Jesse De Los Santos, who was an amazing, super sick player, great energy, loved that dude.
Yeah.
He took a step down from his position in the band, and obviously I was right there, and the guys, asked me, hey man, we need a bass player, do you want the gig? And I was like, fuck yeah. Mm-hmm. So in the I think it was January of 2012, I moved from Tampa to Denver, joined the band. We cranked out what would become Unnatural Selection. Terry Date was the producer and the engineer behind that album, which was like a monumental step for me, like being a fan of his work with Pantera, Incubus's Science album. Like there was all these albums that I didn't realize he did until we got to like meet him in his studio, and I'm seeing all these like gold albums. I was like, you did that? You did that? Like all of my favorite albums.
It's kind of sick not realizing you're about to step into a studio with someone with that kind of pedigree, because you might get in your own head about it.
Dude.
Like to be like,
Absolutely.
There's the most organic surprise ever. Day one at the studio, like, oh shit, this is where I am. That's cool.
But by that point, we had already recorded the music, so like the nerves were.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was just like, he was like, hey guys, let me show you what we have going on. We got to listen to some of the mixes, we got to meet him, see what he was doing. And that was really, really cool.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah, we released the Unnatural Selection album in 2013, and as you said, we hit probably the most intensive tour cycle of my life. Possibly even we were just 4 guys in a DIY thrash band that lived in like a basement,
Mm-hmm.
And we toured almost every continent on the planet. We did an extensive tour in Asia and Japan with Rotting Christ and Angelus Apatrida from Spain. We did our first South American tour, headlining. It was like 5 weeks. It was a really like ambitious tour down there, just for like the 4 of us. We didn't have like a tour manager. We had a manager that worked, out of his office in Ohio somewhere, and he was kind of connecting the dots, but we were just the ones getting in the plane and getting on stage, dude. It was one of the hardest tour cycles of my life. And I have such incredible memories, like good and bad, from that time. But to your point, yeah, we played like hundreds of shows in that album cycle.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know how to like put this without maybe it sounding negative, but fuck it, I'm gonna just dive in head first. People can look at a gig you have now and be like, rock star gig. You play in a band with Max Cavalera, you play in a band with Max and Igor Cavalera,
Yeah.
you've done all these things and special shows and tours around the world and headline festivals. It can be looked at as a cushy gig. One, that's not true. No gig is ever cushy. Work is work. But yeah, people who might not know your background might not realize the amount of hours, years, sleepless nights you put into van tours, and you put into RV tours, and you put
Absolutely.
into fucking flying every day in South America with a different backline that never works tours, you know?
Living on a train in Russia for 2 weeks.
Like, hello, dude. Like, you've really cut
was
your
a-
teeth, and that's what I like about you. And, you know, kind of to segue into where we are now, we're on this boat, which, to paint a picture for anyone watching who's never been on a music cruise, it's the size of a large hotel. There's restaurants, there's entertainment, there's rooms.
Yeah.
And it's the same couple thousand people every day for basically a week. You're just surrounded by a bunch of musicians and, you know, fans who've been around this forever. And it becomes very obvious very quick who the lifers are on a boat like this. And when I walk around with you, you've got friends from every different era. Oh, I did this tour in this band with him. I did this, I did that. And it shows, man. And that's why it was important to me. Like, we could sit here and talk about how fucking sick your Soulfly gig has been, but like, everyone knows how sick your Soulfly gig is.
Yeah.
It's about the years you put in cutting your teeth. And I really respect that about you, man. You grinded for a long time to get where you are now.
Damn.
Signature basses, signature straps. You got a cushy ass job at Enki, my dude. You are Mr. Enki now. It's like fucking rad, dude. You've worked really hard. Now, it was really important to me to showcase that.
I appreciate that, man.
Hell yeah, dude.
It's been a long journey, for sure.
Fuck yeah, and it's still going. That's the best part.
Yeah.
You got lots of gas left in the tank.
Oh, yeah. Full tank, baby.
Fuck yeah, baby. Yeah, you just put out another Soulfly record. I'm sure you're already working on another one. And, you know, the train keeps rolling, and I know you're literally on the last boat out of here. You're like me. We are fucking lifers.
Yes, sir.
But let's talk about this boat concept a little more. You've done a bunch of these. What are your kind of like takeaways for someone who might not have been on a music cruise? Not only just the experience of being on the boat, but as a musician. We kind of talked about the swaying on stage. That's definitely a thing. Is there anything else like extremely unique about this experience that you think would be interesting to like pull the veil back on a bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's hear it.
That's an easy one to answer. The best part about these cruises is that everything is like just a melting pot. Like, we could be sitting at the breakfast buffet and a huge Lifetime fan would come right up and like, dude, hey, I saw your set at the lounge or whatever. Like, so good to meet you. Like, can I shake your hand? And it's like, I don't mind, you know, I will definitely stop eating breakfast to like meet a fan. And I just think that it's so cool.
I watched you do it this morning.
It's true. Yeah, dude.
I watched you do it this
You have
morning.
to do that. And I think as I was that fan, you know, I'm that fan. And if I were to be in the presence of somebody that moves me that much and I'm such a fan of, like, it's cool to just be like, oh, dude, there's that guy. Like, oh, no way. Like, damn, that's Gene Hoglan over there, like, at the Pancake Bar or whatever, you know? Like, that's the coolest part. So, like, if anybody is ever on the fence of, like, I don't know if I should go to the cruise, do it. Go to the cruises. You'll be blown away by the experience. It's truly like a incredibly unique like experience, because you could go to a festival, but there's still that separation of like fan and band. You know, there is none of that here. Basically, we're all just fans in the same boat, literally all in the same boat, and there's no like veil there. You know, of course, as an artist, you can go have your own privacy, but most of the time, everybody's just walking around and you're like, oh, dude, there's Gary Holt, there's, you know, John Campbell from Lamb of God, and we're all just walking around. We're all going to see shows. We've run into Jose Mangan 300 times, you know, and he's always down to party, and we're just like, dude, we did a Wall of Death at Exodus' set last night. It was out of control, man. So it's definitely like a one-of-a-kind experience. You can't really find this anywhere else.
I was literally going to reference the Exodus set. I think it's also like massively worth noting on the performance side that the biggest venues on this boat are still of a moderate and intimate size. So you could be seeing like the headline set from the headline band, and there's still no barricade. They're still in your face. Like, the band is literally right here. We watched
sick.
Exodus last night on probably what is one of the smallest stages they've played in hella recent memory. Like, they played the size of a club. They played like a little club stage. and they fit all their gear on it, and they had the most energy-filled show. And for a minute there, I felt like maybe I was back in the 80s at Ruthie's. You know, I felt like I was at a Bay Area thrash show.
I was blown. That was like the most fun I've had at any
Agreed.
show.
We kept saying that to each other.
We were just looking over each other like, oh shit.
The whole gang was with us. Jose was rocking with us. We were like, just kept looking at each other like, this is fucking sick. They played Metal Command, dude.
Yeah, they busted out all kinds of old tracks, and as you said, it was like, it felt like you were probably the closest that you could get.
It was like literally like, it was like, if you've seen Murder in the Front Row, read it, or seen the film, that's what it felt like for a minute. Like we were transported back there to like some early fucking sweaty club Bay Area shows. It was rad.
It was so fun.
Sick. I'm playing the Gary Holt guitar.
Yeah. Dude, that guitar sounds sick, dude.
Yeah, it's rad, and I mean, it obviously looks the coolest too.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, as we spent how much time talking about the sick ass sandblast finish, like, we both have our tastes. Is this not like the guitar literally came out and Tony was like, hey, I think I know which guitar you're gonna want this year.
Yeah, dude.
Like, this is the most you shit ever.
We also share an affinity for that colorway, red, black, and white.
Goddamn right, dude.
Right, because I mean, even the Enki logo is like the same. It's just this how we live. It's the coolest, I think.
Powerful colors, man.
Yeah, dude, it's sick.
Let's do a riff that let's do some riffing that the two of us know. What do we got?
Well, we've jammed some Metallica in the past.
We have jammed Metallica in the past.
Honestly, if it wasn't for Cliff Burton, I would not be here right now. He's one of my biggest influences. I always cite him in any sort of interviews or when I have to speak about my history with a bass. So let's throw it all the way back to the first album, bro.
All right, what you got?
All right. So it's
sweet. It's
not
like,
too shabby.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you. People watching this might think this is like at all rehearsed. This is 100% honest. Hand to Gary. Also, this is Gary. This is Gary, by the way, in case I didn't
what's
intro.
up, Gary?
That is Gary.
What's up,
He
dude?
comes everywhere.
That's awesome.
Completely unrehearsed. And I said to you when you sat down, hey, I do this with a lot of guys. Sometimes we're not in the same tuning. It's an issue, or we just don't have any mutual bands. So we do I'll play a riff, he plays a riff, not a lot of jamming. But I said, I feel like today's going to be different. Anytime we've jammed, I've always felt like a very natural. Why don't we play in a band together? What the fuck, dude?
I would love to do that.
I would love to.
The more we've been hanging out, I was thinking to myself, literally at Exodus, I was like, damn, dude, me and Danny would fuck shit up on stage together. People wouldn't be able to handle that.
Wouldn't be able to handle that. And on the flip end of it, the other 22 hours a day that the fans don't see, it's really good to be in a band with people you don't want to murder.
Right.
And it's crazy, right? Never actually works out that way. Just kidding, of course, sort of. I would love to play in a band with you. Gang. Mike and I have literally been hanging out from breakfast to dinner every single day this boat, watching shows together. It's been a pleasure. So let's start that band.
Yeah, one of these days.
Let's do that.
Got to do something.
Obviously Metallica, I'm assuming that's, a childhood. You said Cliff is one of your earliest bass heroes. What were some of the other early sounds you got into? Like, how do you end up playing bass instead of drums, or how do you even end up with an instrument? Is the home musical? Kind of give me like the abridged baby Mike story. We heard teenage Mike story. What about baby Mike? How do you get into this whole world?
That's a great question, man. I actually don't really have much music background in my family whatsoever, you know, at all. But my parents are big music fans. So
Cool.
that's kind of what was my introduction to this whole world, was just listening to my parents' favorite albums, looking at like the cover of their like vinyl collection, falling in love with the artwork, listening to the music, you know, on Saturday when it's like, you know, Saturday morning cartoons and mom and dad are like, you know, mom's like making lunch and dad's out cutting the grass and, you know, there's Van Halen playing. And like, that's kind of where I came from, you know, a lot of Led Zeppelin, a lot of like Van Halen, and a lot of like Sabbath stuff like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
That was the shit that I was raised on. So like, it started with that, and when I got a little bit older and I kind of like kind of curious to playing music, there was an orchestral program in my school. For some reason, I mean, I really love classical music, so I guess it wasn't that much of a surprise because we also were listening to a lot of that in my house. But I kind of fell in love with classical music. I gravitated towards the violin. And a lot of people may not know about this about me, but I'm actually quite ambidextrous. And I do a lot of things with my left hand that I can't with my right, and it's really weird. We could go into that. It's a rabbit hole. But so when I first started playing, I wanted to play I guess a left-handed bow with a violin, but it was like $200 or something more, and my parents were like, do you think you could try to do it with the right-handed one? And I was like, yeah, it's okay, because it was just that moment where I literally chose like left or right. So we went with the cheaper violin that was just more accessible, and I started fretting with my left hand. And that is kind of why I chose that path. So I played violin for a while, got really used to it, loved it, moved schools. They did not have the same orchestral program. So I actually joined the band and picked up the saxophone. I know. It sucked. It was a very short-lived moment.
Short-lived time
Yes.
in the sax section of the orchestra.
I liked it. I thought it was cool until I showed up to rehearsals one day and it wasn't working, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? And my teacher was like, when was the last time you cleaned it?
Oh, fuck.
Dude, I didn't know you had to clean it. And like, there was like this little thing. She was like, oh yeah, you're supposed to push this little lever, and a ton of spit. Just like loogie, like spit just drained out, and I almost puked, and I handed her the saxophone, and I was like, I'm done. And that was it.
It's incredible.
I fucking quit, like, immediately. I went, done, you know, and then soon after that, I mean, I still had my violin. I fucked around with that a little bit. But then one Christmas, my dad got me an acoustic electric, like, Ovation, nice guitar, because I was starting to listen to more rock, and I kind of wanted to play, like, Chili Peppers stuff, because that was going on in my house a lot, too. And one of my huge influences was Flea. But he got me a guitar, and I could not play with a pick. I still can't. Still can't play with a pick, bro. I'm terrible at it.
It's tough.
So it doesn't work for me.
Strings are so thick, man.
Right. So back then, even trying to play guitar, I started finger picking, playing with my fingers, and after a while, my dad's like, how come you don't play with the pick? And I was like, I can't. I like it better like this. And he was like, well, maybe you should try bass. So that was literally like
Give you that little push.
Yeah, dude. I gotta shout out my pop. He definitely like gave me these little nudges that changed my life as a musician, 100%, for sure. So we sold the guitar, got a bass. It was like a Yamaha. Everything came in one box. It was a bass, a cable, and a little like 10-watt amplifier, and that was it. You know, I started jamming on that, learning Chili Peppers licks, learning Rage Against the Machine licks, and basically that was the spark. That was it. That was my path had been defined at that point. And I was playing bass. I bought myself a nice Fender Jazz when I got a job, you know, and that was it. Pretty much just changed my life from there.
And then click, you hear Metallica one day, and then we're off to the races. Basically,
Yeah.
It's literally the love story.
Yeah, basically, yeah. When I got to high school, I started finding like the more niche, like heavy metal bands, like Metallica, like Iron Maiden, you know. And then being a bass player and just having the ear for it. One of my favorite influences that gives me that thump and pluck approach to my playing, Les Claypool, baby. Huge Primus fan. So I learned a lot of his approach, and that's kind of like what gave me my, I guess you could say, like a hybrid style between like aggressive, Burton-esque finger picking style with like a more melodic approach to the lines that I write, but then also keeping it cool and percussive and thinking outside the box a little bit, kind of like Les would. Like, you know, I feel like Les's approach to bass is just one of a kind.
I mean, your playing is very much like seems silly to reference two of the greatest bass players of all time, but like, hey, you earned it. You are a very much like a Claypool Burton hybrid.
Claypool Burton. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Totally unrehearsed that one
Look,
too.
yeah, we have a one-person audience now. It fucking slays.
Oh, what's
now,
up?
now we can say it's actually live. We were
That's
filmed
it.
in front of a live audience.
Woo.
Hell
Sick.
yeah!
Crowd surf.
Mike, thank you so much for hanging out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, doing Defender of the Riff live here with me, Mike Leon, Soulfly, and 900 other things, as you just heard about for the last half hour. Daniel Dekay, your host and humble narrator. And let's take it out with a jam, and then get you off to the all-you-can-eat buffet and the open bar.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm ready for that.
What about we're at sea. What about if we close out with a song about saving the whales?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
I know you like some of that hippie metal. Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. Let's do it.